All right, we have five guys up here: Garrett Cole, Spencer Strider, Dylan Cease, Emmanuel Classe, and Joe Ryan. We have all five of these guys paused at the moment in which their front foot has made contact with the ground for the very first time. When that front foot gets into the ground here, we call this foot strike. So when our front foot strikes the ground is where we have paused these guys' videos. At this foot strike position, we want to be able to check off a couple key positions with our body. The first position we want to think about is our belt buckle getting itself rotated and facing our catcher as much as possible. In order to get that belt buckle to be facing the catcher, we need this back hip to have rotated forward. We also need this back knee to have rotated forward. And to help accelerate the back knee and the back hip's rotation, we need to drive through our big toe. And we can see that with all five of these guys, the back hip has gone forward, the back knee has rotated around, and we have driven through the big toe. The back hip has rotated forward, same with the knee, and the foot is driving through the big toe, helping the knee and the hip rotate forward. Same thing with Classe down here. He's driven through his big toe, which helps rotate that knee, which helps get that back hip to rotate, which ultimately gets the belt buckle to face the target. And then same thing here with Mr. Ryan. Everything has rotated forward. What we can also notice and want to check off is that the upper body has separated itself from the lower body. Our shoulders have separated themselves from our hips. And we've said everything with our lower body has rotated to the target. And we just said we want to separate our shoulders from our hips. So our hips going to the target, we need to separate that. So that means the chest, the shoulders, need to continue facing the same way they started. With all five of these guys being right-handed, that means their chest remains facing into third base dugout, while the hips have rotated home. So if we clear all those arrows up and we take each of these guys one by one and kind of make them bigger, we'll watch Garrett Cole in full speed, and then in slow motion we will pause him at that foot strike position. Boom. So again, we want to watch this back hip, this back knee, and this back foot. And we're going to rewind to right before he gets that foot strike to occur. And we're going to watch how this back hip is starting here, the back knee is starting here, and the back foot is still holding its ground on the pitching rubber. And we're going to be able to see how much rotation. Oh, wow, that got aggressive. how much rotation is actually occurring. Boom. 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 Let's take that to our next guy. Spencer Strider. Again, we'll watch it in real time and then in slow motion. We'll pause Strider at his foot strike position. Boom. Okay, we can see back hip is here. Back knee is all the way turned over. Back foot all the way turned over. We rotate, or rather, we unrotate that and we take him back. And we can see when he begins rotating just how much everything gets to rotate forward. Then his foot lands in the ground. Lower body rotates first. Boom. Then the foot gets into the ground at foot strike. We have now successfully separated our lower half, which is facing the target, from our upper half, which is still facing the dugout. The more of this upper lower half separation, or hip shoulder separation, the more of that we achieve, the more power we're going to create, and the amount of stress that gets put on our arm is going to decrease. Let's take this to our next guy, Class A. Again, we'll watch it in real time and then in slow motion. Pause him at foot strike, so boom, there's the foot in the ground. We can see that belt buckle going to that target, while the chest still continues to face third base dugout. How did the belt buckle get to the target while the chest remains in its same position? Well, it's because that back knee rotated forward and we were able to drive through our big toe. We were able to rotate our foot around our big toe, which drives our entire body forward. Drives our entire body forward. The rotation of the knee and the drive through the big toe, the folding over of the foot over the toe, rolling my foot over my big toe, helps get everything to drive forward. And then once the lower body drives forward, now it's time for the upper body to drive forward. Go to our next guy, Dylan Cease. Again, first one will be full speed. And this next one will be slow motion. We'll pause it at foot strike. Boom. We can see that same thing, driving through that big toe, folding his foot over his big toe, extending his leg through that big toe, reaching away from the pitching rubber through our big toe. So that way our back knee can rotate forward, along with our back hip can rotate forward. Boom. Boom. And then, as we can see, boom. Our 3 points of our back leg is the hip, the knee, and the foot. We want to be strong in here so we can send power out through here. Bam. And then once we send that power through with the lower half, now it's time for the upper half. And where's our final guy? Joe Ryan. You guys already know the drill. Starting full speed. And then we'll go slow-mo. Pausing it at foot strike, where we can see again driving through that big toe, rotating that knee all the way down and around, getting that back hip to drive itself forward, which gets the belt buckle to the target, which is our catcher. All meanwhile, our chest, our upper body has separated itself from the lower body. Lower body is going to the target. The upper body is fighting to not do that, which means stay back. So that way, once this lower body creates all this power, now we can send it up to the upper body to send all that power out. All right, what we're discussing next is the front leg. As we see, got this nice, good alignment of the hip, knee, and foot going to our target. Everyone's going to have slightly different angles in their lead leg. All right, but the important part is that we rotate this front leg just like we're rotating the back leg. And we can see that the knees are almost synchronized up, synced up, synced up. That the knees are synced up. When the back knee's rotating, so is the front knee. Everyone's going to come down the mound a little different, but regardless, that front knee, that front foot has got to rotate to our target. Once that foot gets in the ground, we have taken energy and we have sent it down this mound. We have sent the energy from the back foot to the front foot. And now we got to get this energy from the front foot up to our upper body and then out our upper body down that mound. And this front leg is a huge piece of that. We have to make sure that this front leg becomes a firm, fixed point that we can drive over and rotate around. We need to be able to drive our trunk, which is from our shoulders to our hips, our trunk, we have to drive over and around our front leg. We're going to be able to do that the fastest and the most aggressive when this front leg is firm. Just like our front leg gets firm when we swing, we need to be throwing on a firm front leg. More guys than not achieve that firmness in that front leg by taking the leg and locking out, stiffening up, or straightening that leg. So this angle that we have here with Dylan Cease, we'll see straightens out, stiffens up, locks out. And when that leg does that and turns into a firm point, that trunk is able to rotate itself in front of the leg, and then also around that leg. So because that front leg got firm, it stiffened up, it locked out, it straightened up, that allows the upper body to get slammed down, sent down, accelerated forward, as the arm is also then sent down. And then we can finish that rotation around. We'll come over here to Class A and we'll look at that same thing. So here's that angle in that front leg. We need to now be able to get that trunk in front of the leg and then around the leg. So we'll watch and see how it doesn't lock all the way out like C's front leg did, but it is firm. There's firmness there, meaning the knee does not drift forward. The knee, in fact, does some of that locking out, locking out, locking out. Okay. Come up here to Garrett Cole. Front leg angle. This has got to become firm so we can get the trunk in front and then around the front side. So we can see Garrett Cole fully locks that thing out. Starting here, gets to there. And what's that helping? That's helping get the trunk out in front. Out in front. Down the mound. And then ultimately, what else? Around. And then Joe Ryan. Same thing. That angle, that front leg needs to become firm so we can drive that trunk out in front and then down and around. And we can see not a full lockout guy, but a knee is not going to keep drifting forward. So that way it is firm. Now it's locked out. And now I can rotate around it. Around it. Around it. But one of the things we're able to see here is just how out in front through that last part of that ball being in our hands and that first part of that arm turning over into pronation to decelerate, that head to the foot is. That head to the foot is. Head to the foot is. Getting ourselves to rotate out in front. Out in front. Rotate forward. Being able to rotate forward. That's all because that front leg becoming a firm, fixed point that we can drive our chest down to help accelerate our arm out in front. And then we can see the same thing. The Strider is a lockout guy. Stiffening that thing up. Straightening it up. So that way the trunk can get sent forward. Boom. Foot strike, he's here. So as well, we can see getting himself out over that front leg because that front leg became firm. It became a fixed point that we can get out in front of and then also be able to rotate around. All right, so let's now discuss upper body at foot strike here. So again, we're looking at this part of our body. And the first thing we want to think about is our throwing arm. We want to have a 90-ish degree angle in both our elbow and our armpit. We're looking for this glove to be at our chest, straight in front of us to our target. We don't want this glove getting outside of our shoulder. If this glove's getting outside of our front shoulder is going to start to open up, and now we're not going to be able to rotate out in front as well because we'll be tilted and our rotation will be on a slight axis. Again, that chest, like we've been talking about, has not rotated. And obviously, head looking straight over top of our shoulder down the barrel. Pull that, our quad view here up with these guys. Get them all back to foot strike. Okay, so as we can see, everyone's glove's in a slightly different position, but the overall theme is what? Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with chest. Glove is in line with his upper body. I don't want to say chest because chest is up here. It's more in line with his midsection. None of the gloves are outside of their bodies. None of their gloves have opened their upper bodies up, and that is why they were able to create tremendous upper-lower half separation. Not just because the lower body rotated itself properly and on time, but it's because the upper body did not rotate with it. And the easiest way for the upper body to start to rotate with the lower body is by that glove swooping outside of our body, swooping outside of our shoulder, which would then start the shoulder to swoop out, which would then start to bring the back shoulder forward, which now starts to make the chest, instead of facing third base dugout, starts to face the on deck circle. So now the hips, which are going this way, and the shoulders were going this way for ultimate separation, now the hips that are facing this way, the shoulders are facing this way. Less separation, which means less velo and extra stress on the arm to make that throw, which is the complete opposite of what we're trying to achieve through our good, clean mechanics. So we can see with that glove in that good position, the glove is just going to hold there as the body rotates to it. The glove will hold there as the body of the backside rotates to it. The glove will hold there as the body rotates through it. The glove will hold there as the body rotates through it. Boom. 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 As long as the lower body takes care of business, leading into foot strike, and the upper body has done its job of staying back, everything just happens on its own. But that's why it's so critical that the lower body does its thing on time, and on time meaning by the time that foot gets in the ground, and doing its thing meaning fully rotated as much as we possibly can. And the upper body does its thing leading into foot strike, which is stay closed. Do not open up. Do not let my glove open my shoulder, and keep my arm loaded back. I don't rotate the throw until after the foot gets into the ground. My lower body rotates to get the foot into the ground. Then my upper body rotates after the foot is in the ground. Now it just becomes how fast, violent, and explosive can I make them? All right, we're gonna let your video play through here twice. First time, all one motion. Second time, we will pause it at foot strike, the moment your front foot hits the ground, so that way we can compare and contrast all the things we just heard, saw, and learned in the big leaguers to what we see you doing and getting into positions at that foot strike. So here we are, the moment that foot has hit the ground. Let me get my trusty cursor here so we can draw some lines. Okay, so we know going into foot strike, we need that back foot to rotate and get into a position that looks like this. Looks like this. We know that back knee needs to rotate forward, somewhat very much like that. And ultimately, we need that back hip to be going forward, which will get our belt buckle rotated to the target, which will separate our upper from our lower halves. We look at the front leg, and it is rotating late, which is good. It's staying closed for a long period of time. Close, 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 close. And now it rotates, which is good. We don't want to be opening early. We want to be late and explosive with that rotation. So it's a good job with that front leg staying closed long. We shift our focus to the upper half, and we can kind of see that these shoulders are already starting to peel or open up. Starting to peel out or open up, meaning our upper body's separation from that lower body isn't that much. Our center of our chest is close to the direction that the center of our shorts are at, meaning our body is in alignment rather than separated. The glove is in a position that is in a line, so we can't say the glove is the reason for your shoulder opening up. So we got to think, what is? Well, it just looks like we're starting. We want to start throwing. We want to start throwing, start throwing, start throwing, start throwing before that foot's in the ground. So we just got to wait. We got to wait until that foot is in the ground. Then I can start to rotate around. Not start to rotate, start to rotate, start to rotate as the foot is getting into the ground. However, let's go back and get some easier things to think about. When we raise our leg up, we want to think about raising our knee up high. Right now, the way you're moving this front leg, you're more raising your foot up. So we watch and see how your foot is just going up. Your foot is going up. It's hard to get this leg up high when our foot is underneath our butt. We want that foot to be more underneath our knee. And in order to do that, we need to think about raising the knee up. And when we raise the knee up, that foot will want to dangle more underneath it. So we want to think about raising the knee up high, not lifting the foot up to your butt. Another way to think of this is right here, we have a very small angle in our knee. We're looking for a bigger angle in your knee, and your foot would be over here. I didn't say, or I'm looking for a perfect 90. We're just looking for a bigger angle than what we're currently working with. So raise the knee, not lift the foot. The second thing we want to think about is we need to get a little bit deeper into our back leg. We need to sit into our back hip a little bit deeper. If we just watch this back leg, it kind of just falls forward. Notice that? Your leg is just kind of falling forward. And we're just tall the whole time. Another way to look at this would be top of my head is here. Pretty tall that whole time. The only big leaguer that I can think of that is relatively tall or big on his back leg for a large majority of his delivery down the mound is Zach Gallen, who we have here. And we're going to notice that his back leg doesn't bend a whole lot either on the way down, but he does sit into it. Think about there is a chair back here, and this butt cheek has got to sit down into it as the body progresses down the mound. So you see how he's kind of sitting down into that? He's sitting down into it. We can also look at the angle of this back knee. It's straight, and now he's sitting into it. It's not a lot, but he has gotten down into his back hip. He's gotten loaded into his back glute. We kind of see the difference there between the position of his back knee and your back knee. The position of his foot to knee is more vertical. Your foot to knee is more going inward. So he's able to load into this back hip, back glute, back groin. Your load is more into this inside part of the knee right now. If we go to someone else that doesn't necessarily, or let me go to another point before we do that. If we're going to be a guy that stays high like Zach Gallen, we are going to need to be super rotationally aggressive, explosive, and violent with our backside. Boom. 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 Into that foot strike. We take that over to you, and boom, foot strike. It's not really that violent. Not really that big. Not really that explosive. Okay. Let's take this to another guy who's not going to sit deep into it. Not going to be a very deep sitter, DeGrom, But what DeGrom is going to be able to do is he's going to be able to stride it out far. He's going to be allow his body to travel down the mound for a long period of time. So let's watch. Okay, that sit. He's tall and he's sitting into it. At the top of the leg lift, his butt is up here. As he goes down the mound, his butt is now down here. He's sitting into it. And then once you sit into it, then you can drive out of it. Sit into it, drive out of it. Sit into it, drive out of it. Versus being tall. So there are two main things I want us focusing on for these next couple weeks is getting comfortable of getting this leg lift up high. So we need to be thinking about doing things like
we can get a couple different.
Here, working on our leg lift. Get that thing up high. Get that thing up high. And just work on looking at yourself in the mirror, getting that knee up high, and also thinking that I'm raising that knee up so that foot's more dangling underneath that knee. Okay, watch this knee go up and the foot follow the knee. Knee go up. Boom. So a goal for you should be, boom, I'm here. You're currently here. We're level with your hip. I'm above my hip. I want you working somewhere between where I'm at and where you're currently at in the mirror. Work on getting that thing above your hip's height. Above your hip height, not just up to your hip height. And then while we're doing that, thinking about that foot dangling underneath your knee. Seeing in the mirror, is my foot back here? Or is my foot dangling over here? Right? Here's your max. Boom. Right there. So it's almost even beneath the hip height. And then we can see my max. Obviously, I'm not wanting you to get to where I'm getting, but I just want you to get to higher than what you currently are getting, knowing that we could get it all the way up to the mid-chest area. Let's shoot somewhere between mid-chest and above the hip. And then for your sitting and driving, a good drill for that is going to be this here, sitting on the bench and just being comfortable having us be at a super extreme sit position and learning how to move and drive that back leg to get our body to go forward. Being comfortable being down low and learning how to drive out from that low position. All right, so just gonna let your video play here through twice. First time be uninterrupted, all one motion. Second time we will pause it at that foot strike position so that way you can compare and contrast the positions your body's in versus the positions that the big leaguers were in. Okay, so there we are at our foot strike. So again, that's the moment in which that front foot gets into the ground, gets into the ground, gets into the ground, gets into the ground for the first time. And what we see here at foot strike is that back foot has done like the first 10% of its rotation and drive, which means this back knee hasn't been able to rotate very much forward and towards the target, which minimizes how much this back hip gets to be rotated forward, meaning this belt buckle is very much, and we can see it over here in the side view, very much just kind of going right into third base dugout. Almost the same exact perspective and direction that the center of our chest is going, which is going more towards third base than third base dugout. Meaning we don't have very much upper lower half separation because both our upper half and our lower half are facing very much the same direction. And what we saw in the big league video is that we need that lower half to have rotated a lot or as much as we possibly can, so that way that belt buckle is as much to that catcher as we possibly can, and that this front kneecap is more towards that target as well, meaning this front leg has rotated more around. So that way it's not so much of a lesser than sign, but closer to a straightish leg. Because we're not going to be able to successfully throw this baseball until this front leg swivels out this way. So we'll draw this line of where it's currently at. As we go to throw the baseball, boom, it has now gotten to a pretty straight line, and we will now be able to throw the baseball. So that means our lower body has been doing a lot of this sway motion, a lot of this swaying and swinging and flinging motion, which we watch the back hip. A lot of our lower body's hip rotation is occurring at this point in time, at this point in time, at this point in time, at this point in time. But what we learned with those big league videos is that we want that movement, this type of movement from that backside leg, this type of movement with that backside hip to be occurring right as that front foot is hitting the ground. And we can see that the front foot has been in the ground for all of those movements. And that's why our upper lower half separation is almost non-existent, is because the lower body did not do the movements it needed to do by the time it needed to do them. And the time that it needs to do it by is by the time that front foot gets in the ground. And unfortunately, all this good backside position that we're in here did not occur until well after that front foot already got into the ground. So we kind of think like if your backside was like right here, and your entire lower body was this position here, but this upper body, instead of the Tigers being towards the catcher, the Tigers were still facing us. So let's take a snapshot real quick of what this lower body looks like. Boom. And boom, this upper body position here. If we could have this upper body's position with this lower body's position, when that front foot hits the ground for the first time, we'd be in business. Also, if that front leg was able to rotate to this alignment when it got into the ground versus this alignment when it gets in the ground, we'd be cooking. So we need to be thinking about getting our legs to rotate on time. So something from the team drill video that's going to help you with this is going to be this drill here of
We're just going to be
this drill here of getting that backside to rotate through that big toe and just learning that movement, because if we learn how to do the movement, we're going to be able to learn what it feels like. And if you learn what it feels like, we can start to make it feel earlier, meaning it's occurring earlier, or we can make it feel later, meaning it's happening later. We can start to adjust that movement based on our feel to the time that we need it to be. And right now, we just need the movement of this right here that you do to occur sooner. So we practice that individual movement, and it's going to become easier to do it sooner. Another movement that's going to be helpful for you with this front leg rotating is this drill here, is getting a band to be getting pulled away by your knee. So that way we can go from this bad position here, this bad angle that I have here is very much reflected by the bad angle you have here, but just flip from me being a lefty and you being a righty. And then we can see the difference between if I land here in my drill versus, boom, there. And this position that I'm now in here reflects a lot more of the position that you are in here. So by doing this drill, we're going to learn the extra movements needed, the extra feel to get my front leg to land in this type of alignment rather than landing in this type of alignment. So this drill over here is going to be one that's going to help you clean up and feel out how to fix that front leg. Let's now take it back and just look at that glove, and we can be reinforced on the work that we were doing at practice on getting that glove to travel out. Right? And let's just get some random big leaguers here. And let's just see, boom, glove's getting out to here compared to where his head is here. Boom. Get another guy. So let's get, oops, don't want that. Nope. Okay, so we'll get where his head is, and again, almost the same spot of the distance away from his body. So Lucca gets that glove even more extended than those other guys. And let's go one final guy. Not the greatest. We're a little in front of him. He's the guy that holds it across his body for a long time. So it's tough to see exactly how far away from his head he is. But if we just look at how extended that arm is, we know that it is maybe not out in front of his body, far away from his head, but from a perspective of he's here and this is over here this way, extended away from his body. And then ultimately when it comes back around, then it's here and here. So let me just kind of go back to you real quick and just see how yours is always just right, finish, 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 finish the whole time. And then it can't just stay there forever. It's going to get tired. It's going to want to do something, and then it's going to have that ability to sometimes want to slip down and out, slip down and out, down and out, and that will start to open up our shoulder early, which will then affect how much power we have in our throw. Let's also go back to the very beginning and just look at our set position here. Remember that this mound stays flat for about 6-8 inches before it then starts to go down. And the slope that it's going down is it's going down 1 inch for every 1 foot that it travels. So every 1 foot that you go to the target, you will have gone down 1 inch. So right here in our set position, that means this foot is lower than this foot, which means we can see how the body starts to lean forward a little bit, or the more of your weight is over this front foot. That's not a straight line, I apologize, but we get the gist. You're not going to be able to get this leg off the ground until you get less weight on this leg. And right now you have more weight on this front leg than you do this back leg, and that needs to be flipped. We need to have more weight on our back leg than our front leg, so that way when we lift this front leg up off the ground, all that weight that was on that front leg doesn't have to shift back to the back leg in order to be under control and balanced. But what we'll see is, here's the middle of your head. We'll start to play it, and we're going to see, boom, what are we doing here? We're shifting that weight back. We're taking all of that weight that's on that front leg and shifting it to the back leg to be able to get it up off the ground. Now, if we draw that same type of line from your head, oh, that's not the good start. Let's start more over here. We draw that line from the back of your head, and now it's more towards where? It's more towards this back foot than it is the front foot. Thinking like maybe like 55, 60, 65% of our body weight on this back leg and the remainder on that front leg. And it's going to be easier to achieve that when our back knee has a slight bend to it and our front knee does not. So again, let's just go to random big league guys and just look. We got slight bend here, no bend here, up and gone. Up and gone. Back knee bent, front knee not. Get it up and go. Back knee slightly bent, front knee not. So that way we're up and gone. We don't have to shift our weight back. Back knee's bent, front knee's not. That way we can get it up and get it going without having to rock back. We don't want the base runner that's on, wherever he may be at, whether it's first, second, third, obviously is not a big deal, but first or second specifically, we don't want that base runner to be able to have to let me start that over again. We don't want the base runner to be able to eliminate having to watch heels, having to watch the reaction of when this comes up off the ground. Instead, they get to watch a bigger area of just watch when the body shifts back, shifts back, shifts back, shifts back, shifts back. Once you start to see this, that base runner knows he's free to go. He's free to clear, or at least if he's on first. Second, he may have to respect an inside move if you can show and display you got a good one. But that guy on first base can just be like, I'm gone. And now he's one or two steps in before that leg starts to come up, which becomes a big, huge difference in the controlling the running game aspect of things, especially when you're trying to help out your catcher throw dudes out. So instead of having to shift the weight back, we want it to already be back. Start strong, stay strong. And then last but not least, I just want us to think about if this is going to be relatively short and compact, this is going to want to be relatively short and compact. But we need it to still be whippy. Okay? And right now, because your forearm, we'll just say like your elbows here and your forearms here, your forearm is just going to like clock its way up. Okay? It's clocked its way up. That's not efficient. That's not whippy. That's not going to help my arm produce more elastic power. Because now it's just going to be kind of, see how it keeps going further and further into your head? Because it can't stop this type of movement. It's already started this clock. It's gotten to 12 where it should stop at 12 when we get that foot down. But it's going to keep going, keep going, keep going. And now we're in this pretty tight angle here, which is going to lead to a few different things. For you, it kind of leads us to getting around the baseball. See how that arm is kind of popping around the baseball versus getting through the baseball. If I get, some front views, notice how this arm is going through and your arm is kind of going around. It's kind of getting flung out. And that's just because of the tight angle the arm is at here. Versus having more of that 90-ish degree angle there. Okay? What I want us to think about in order to clean this up is we don't want to be a clock loading our hand up. We want to load the elbow back. So none of these guys are super compact arm Strider is. Okay, so let's just look at Strider. Okay, Strider's not going to have a long arm path, but just watch on where his arm goes. Right, so the ball comes out, and there's his elbow, and then the ball. And then we'll do that again. Ball and elbow is very close to the same angle. If anything, it's less than an angle. It's not going more up this way like yours was. He's loading his elbow up. Load the elbow up. Load the elbow up. So that way, the very first time that this hand gets above this elbow is right before the foot gets in the ground. Right before the foot gets in the ground, now the hand is higher than the elbow. We know just from your clock that your hand very quickly is already above the elbow, meaning our arm is going to be draggy through. Instead of it being whippy, your arm has to be a little draggy because it's got to get out of this big, tight bend, and now it's going to open itself up into this large bend. Tight bend here into a big bend here, or a big extension here, is a lot of casting or swinging that arm around. Let's get someone that actually has, or is another guy that's got compact arm. Dylan Cease. Okay, so again, he's not going to have that arm extend very far. He's not going to lose much of his bend in his elbow back here, but just watch on how this hand is going to stay down, 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 down. Now it's coming up because that foot is just about to go into the ground, for the very first time. So now as that foot's going into the ground, now the hand is coming up. So we need to think about loading our elbow back and up. We need to think about taking our elbow and loading it back up here, loading it in that direction, versus loading the hand up this direction. Don't take your hand up a half pipe. Load your elbow back like you're loading a bow, like you're about to load up a punch, not riding your hand up a half pipe. All right, so we're going to let your video play through here twice. First time will be uninterrupted, all one motion. The second time, we will pause it at your foot strike so we can talk about, compare and contrast the positions your body's in versus the positions the big leaguers were in. So we'll pause it right here. First couple of things I want to bring to your attention that you're doing really good is we're keeping this glove right in line with that rib cage at this point in time, which really helps us look down that barrel of our shoulder. Another way to think of that is our upper body is doing a really good job of staying closed here. Another thing we're doing a good job of is getting this front leg nice and cleared or rotated towards our target, which gives this backside plenty of space to be able to come through. However, if we look at this back leg, specifically the back foot, we can see that it's just begun to do its rotation. However, the foot's in the ground, meaning we need this to have already rotated and driven through that big toe already, which helps get this knee rotated more aggressively, which ultimately helps get this back hip to drive forward, exposing the belt buckle to the catcher. And we can just see that these hips haven't gotten the ability to rotate around all that much because of the knee, because of the foot. Your foot and knee will do the movements that we need them to do. They will continue to rotate. they will continue to rotate. And as they continue to rotate, that back hip will get driven forward. Boom. Boom. But what we can see is as those hips are really going forward, so is the upper body. So our upper and lower half are rotating together here, meaning we don't have a lot of upper lower half separation, meaning we're not creating extra power with our body, and we're not minimizing the stress that's being put on our arm because we're using our body. So we need to think about getting this backside leg to drive sooner. It does all the movements that it's supposed to. It's just not doing it on time. We do a good job of sitting into our back hip. We do a good job of trying to keep this back knee back. All those are signs of I'm going to be able to drive down this mountain and create a lot of power with my lower body. Unfortunately, the timing is just not there with the backside. We get about 60% of the way there. That last 40% of the lower body's rotation, specifically that backside, is what unlocks all that extra power for us. So a drill that's going to be very beneficial for you out of the ones that we sent to the team, like we said, you do a good job of doing this already. You do a good job of sitting into that back hip and keeping that knee back. All right, you do a good job of that right there. Now it's just a matter of being able to fire it all at the right time. So to help you with that, a drill that's going to be beneficial would be this one right here, just to help really reinforce the feeling of getting that backside to drive and turn over that backside foot. Getting that exact same movement going that you already do right here. Here's the position that we're finishing in over here. Right? Very similar to what you got going on here with the back foot going forward. This is turned over and that's forward. Is very much what's happening here. That's turned over, knees going forward, which has gotten my hips to go forward. You can then piggyback that with the bench slide drill. And now we're able to drive the backside and the body forward by just using that backside leg. So now I'm going to have to be getting it turned over by the time I stop. And by the time I stop is caused by what? Front foot getting into the ground. So by the time I've completed my backside rotation, my body is stopped, which would translate over to this over here, because as soon as you would finish your backside rotation, boom, we wouldn't be able to go forward anymore because that front foot would be stopping us because it's in the ground. So we just need to think about getting this backside to turn over more, sooner, more aggressively, earlier, quicker, some type of way to get it to complete itself on time. And right now, it's late. Okay? What that's going to help us do, like we said, that's going to help us create more power. And with more power is going to come more violence. So we got to make sure that when we go to throw, that we are violent through our release. Violent through our release means we're going to have to finish more with the hips than what this one's doing, and closer, and even more so than what this one's doing. Okay, we can see how we're able to continue to rotate that backside through. And this one over here, the backside wants to rotate through, but it kind of just goes more straight forward. Forward versus the rotation of that back hip continuing to rotate. Just for you to be able to see some violence in rotation, let's look at 3 guys in particular. Look at the violence and how fast he's rotating. Now, granted, this is regular speed, yours is in slow motion, but even in his slow motion, the violence through rotation. A very extreme example I've pulled out here, but look how far beyond release his body is rotated, both upper and lower half. Versus you. Boom. Let's go to the next guy. Again, same thing. He's going to get to release here, and then he's got to rotate through that, both upper and lower body, because it's violent. It's going to take a long time to stop a car driving 100 miles an hour. It's going to be very easy and quick to stop a car driving 10 miles an hour. Final example of that violence, again, Dylan Cease. We can see somewhere in between Uribe and Strider. Boom. All the way through because of how much violence was going on. That violence is easier achieved because of that lower body being rotated forward at foot strike. Already rotated forward at foot strike. Lower body's already rotated forward at foot strike. Versus your lower body not quite rotated at foot strike. What I also want to think about is we got a good compact arm. It just gets flipped up too soon. I don't even want to say it's flipped up too soon. Let's think more of, let's rewind that and say rather, we need to get the elbow to load itself up higher before the hand wants to flip up. Okay? So we can see that elbow's loading up. The elbow is loading up, and behind you, it's loading up and back. It's loading up and back. Exactly what we want. Unfortunately, it starts to flip up. The hand starts to flip up a little too early. And that has left us with this elbow beneath our shoulder position at foot strike, which puts the rest of our arm, specifically the elbow, in a very elevated category for future injuries. There's a lot of additional stress that has to get put on the arms, again, specifically in this elbow area, when the elbow is beneath the shoulder at foot strike. Because now as we go to rotate these shoulders through, there's going to be a little bit of extra drag back here to try to get it going before it flips out in front. We got tremendous external rotation ability in our shoulder. We just need to be able to get this arm loaded into a little bit stronger of a position, so that way we're closer to that 90-90 position. We already got the 90 in the elbow. We just don't have that 90 in the armpit. And that's going to get achieved when that elbow just gets a little bit higher up by the time that foot gets in the ground. So we just want to think about loading that elbow up. Think about loading that elbow up. And even as the hand is flipping up, the elbow is still going up with it. So the elbow is going up. And even when the hand is flipping up, that elbow is still going up with it. So that way we're in more of a 90-90 position. Loading the elbow up, so that way we're in more of a 90-90 position for our arm's health. So we just need to load this up higher. And as the hand is flipping up, we need to keep loading that elbow up rather than having the elbow go down. We can see if we draw a line here, that elbow is going down when that hand's flipping up. Let's have everything keep going up as we load it up. Let's get this ball up here to drive it down here, rather than getting the ball here to try to do one of those numbers. All right, we're going to take a look at your video here 2 times. The first time will be uninterrupted, all one motion, so you can see how you look synced up here. And then the second time we will pause it at the moment of foot strike, so that way you have the ability to kind of compare and contrast the things that you're seeing your body doing and getting into at foot strike, and comparing that with the big leaguers and all the things you just learned with them. So we'll pause it at that foot strike. So here we are. And some of the key things from the big league videos was talking about that upper lower half separation. So having that lower half be rotated to the target while the upper half fights to stay back. That's in order to help us create that upper lower half separation. The more we get of that, the harder we're going to begin to throw and the less stress that we're going to be putting on our arm to make those throws. Both things are huge for a pitcher. Excuse me. What we can see at your moment of foot strike is, unfortunately, this back foot has not begun to do any type of firing, any type of rotating, any type of turning over, which makes it very difficult for this knees rotation to A, get completed, meaning it rotate enough, but more importantly is it's not going to be able to rotate very violently if the back foot is not helping it accelerate its rotation. We can think of the foot as the turbo. The back knee can rotate at its max speed, or we click on the turbo and have the back foot rotate with the back knee, and now the back knee is able to rotate faster because of it. And when we get all of them going, that's going to help the back hip really get driven forward. So to help the back hip go forward, we just got to rotate the back knee more. In order to get the back knee to rotate more, we just need to fire the back foot on time. Your back foot does the proper movements, boom, of driving forward, right? This back position here is exactly what we're looking for. If we pull up some big leaguers real quick, let's do some lefties for you. Chapman. Can just look at the position his back foot is at foot strike, boom. And we look at your back leg, they look very much almost identical. But then we start to go to the upper bodies and we can see big differences. His upper body is completely loaded back. Yours has already started to rotate almost like 80% of the way forward, or 80% of the way through already. If we took your upper body and got it positioned to where Chapman's is positioned, be more here, which would again be more close to when your foot first hit the ground, but unfortunately we can see how much less or non-existent rotation has occurred in the backside foot. So now the backside legs no longer look similar. But when we progress your delivery beyond foot strike, boom, now we have gotten that backside leg to be where it needs to be. Unfortunately, it's just late. So we just need to learn how to turn that backside leg over sooner, faster, more aggressively. So drills from the team video that's going to help you with that is going to be this one right here, where we're just sitting on that bench, just learning that process and that movement. Because if we can feel what it feels like to do this movement, we're going to be able to change it while we're throwing. If we can't feel what this movement feels like, it's going to be hard for us to change it. So this drill right here is going to help. Then you piggyback that onto the bench slide. That's going to help you get things to be occurring on time. On time meaning by the time my body has stopped rotating, or by the time my body has stopped moving down this bench, my backside needs to be rotated all the way over. So those two drills are going to help you with your backside leg. Let's take this back to foot strike. Let's look at the front leg, and we can see that we got this awkward angle here. We got this greater than sign, but unfortunately we can't throw with that leg in this position. That leg is going to have to get more straight in line, kneecap going to the catcher versus kneecap going into first base on deck circle. So what we're going to see is we'll draw this angle here again, and we'll watch as your body rotates to go, as your upper body rotates to throw, how much this front leg is also going to rotate. Boom. 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 So now we finally get it to here in order to throw, but watch what's going to happen after that. Now it's going to fall back over here, and then our whole body's going to fall over there. So now we got a lot of wibble, wobble, woo. Wibble, wobble, woo. Wibble, wobble, woo. We want strong and sturdy. We want strong and sturdy. that's not true straight up. So you notice how it's there. No wibble wobbles. Put it down. Firm it out. Not also the greatest video for that. Here we go. Here's the lefty for you. Top lefty pitcher in the Blue Jays organization for sure. Okay. Down and throw. Notice how it's firming up. Locks out. And that allows him to rotate around his front side versus you falling away from your front side. It's because of it lands in, it swivels out, it's going to want to go back to where it was, and because it was going this way, this way, this way, the rest of your body's going to kick that way as well. And that's when we were talking about how your body's finish wasn't always agreeing with the logic of how we rotate. We rotate this way. We would expect everything to finish in this way. Yet your body kind of darted that way. So we need to get that front leg rotated more by the time that front leg gets in the ground, and that's going to help with that. So a drill that's going to help you for that is the banded drill with the drill with the band around your knee right here. So we can see where you're currently landing is here. We need to get it to there. You're currently landing there. We need to get the kneecap to the target. Your kneecap doesn't get to the target until here. So we're just working on that. Will help you tremendously establish that feel for how to rotate that front leg more. Specifically, get that knee to rotate out more. Get that knee above your foot more rather than inside of that foot. And the final thing I want you to notice is we got good glove position here. It's fighting to stay closed, but it very quickly extends and reaches dead straight, and now we're a sneeze away from being opened. That glove is outside of our shoulder. It's only a matter of time until it starts to open us up, and we can kind of see that here. Let me take it back to where it's not paused. We're getting that foot down. Because that glove's outside of our body, it's going to kind of open us up a little early. I want us to think about when we get this glove into this type of position here, it's more in line with our ribs. So let's go back to the videos here, okay? Noticing how it's more here as he starts his rotation versus way out here. Let me try to stick to just lefties for you, huh? That glove's right in line with his rib cage as he goes to throw. Another lefty for you. Low slot guy, but still nonetheless. Boom, that glove is not getting outside of his body. Okay. So we just want to think about keeping that glove closed longer. If we start it over here and it very quickly gets to here and we don't want it to get any further than out here, then we got to spend more time with it over here and less time with it over here. So we've got to keep this glove closed longer. Keep this glove closed longer. Instead of you just extending your arm straight, we got to keep that elbow bent longer. We got to keep and maintain this bend for a little bit before we just completely straighten it out. Because now it's, again, a sneeze away from starting to open up early on us.